We were struggling with this idea when the thing that you really want to do feels really hard. It feels like almost like it's too hard to do. And there's this sort of like, uh, you feel like you want it, I feel like that's what you want to do, but it just feels impossible. Like, how do you approach that? And that was what we got into talking about. And I'm curious if what's your approach to that kind of a situation, Todd?
It goes back to what we do in the eulogy writing, which is, do you really want that thing? It's a question where you look yourself in the mirror. Do I really want that thing or do I not? Because if you do, it's worth going for. It's worth going through the trials, the tribulations, the roller coaster ride. If that thing that we're talking about is really worthwhile to you, is that future what you actually want? Because guess what? If you don't, you will give up. You will. It'll get too hard and you'll go back to some form of mediocrity, which is the very thing that you're trying to break out of by being here, isn't it? There's some layer of mediocrity that we're all dealing with. It almost feels like we're in this glass bubble and it's safe there to an extent. And we play within this game. And now we're like, there is more. There could be a bigger and better life for me. And that's why in the training, when you do the eulogy, I'm like, you have to associate the positive emotions of that life. Now, you have to feel it. This is the hardest part for me, was the feeling of that future, to have that success and that kind of life that I envisioned, that for me feels like the eulogy was like that happened. I have to feel it. And when you feel that, feeling can be really blissful and it can drive you. It's actually an intrinsic motivation. It becomes your motivation. Like you look at I talk about the Olympics a lot because you think those athletes, when they won that gold medal, how freaking hard it was for 4 years, how much they killed themselves and injured themselves and committed and dedicated eating a certain way because they want the gold medal. That's how I answer it. Do you want that thing, Bear? Like it really gets that simple. And if you don't, then there's going to be a lot of reasons why. And that's okay, because maybe you shift somewhere else where you find that motivation. I think it's the litmus test. Do you really want that life? That's why the contemplation is so powerful. How does that land for you?
Yeah, I think that land for me, I love that you said the feeling itself becomes the intrinsic motivation for it. Cause I like to think of the feeling of it. Like, what's that feeling cause sometimes we think we want a thing and it's like a certain picture in our head of what we want. But really we're going for a feeling and maybe it manifests a little bit differently than the exact picture that we think of it. That makes sense?
That's exactly. And actually another way to think about this, another technique that I use is, don't only think about how it makes you feel. Think about your glaring success in life and work and relationships, how that's going to make other people in your life feel. That's very motivating, isn't it? So man, you're shining like a bright, and like for your clients, for your husband, for your wives, for your kids, for your friends, for the people that you're working with, for the future people you're working with, how motivating it is to be around you, that you become this person that's so magnetic and charismatic and is doing the work to really become your best version, and like what it does for people in your life. That's really motivating. Like that don't just make it about you. Feel for Bear, your kids, and what it would be like for you to fully bust through, and the example and the impact that can have an influence on their lives. That's why in the eulogy writing process, I also instruct people to even imagine people that don't even exist yet. Some people are single and they want to have a partner. I'm like, okay, the eulogy with that embedded. Let's use our imagination to create our best life. Let's just start there. And then we work backwards. And Bear, your question is so apropos, because then the question becomes, okay, the rubber's about to meet the road. Do I really want to go for this? Do I really want to do that? Great question, Bear. It's a great conversation for this group. Do I really want it? And if you do, you are going to find a way to make it happen. That I know. And if you don't, then you're going to have to adjust and get clearer. You go back to clarity. What is going to be that life that I am going to be a stand for? That's what the whole purpose of this is, to get associated with the frequency of something that you will go to battle for all the time. And you will be resilient, and you will develop fearlessness, and you will have fortitude, and you will do what it takes. That's a good life. That's the life that I want to leave behind for me. Like it's like that saying in sports where you leave it on the table. Like you leave it on the table, freaking go for it. Like you might fail. You might look a little foolish. People might judge you. Like you might have change in relationships. Things just might happen as you are honing in on this best self, but that's okay. Let them judge. Let old relationships that aren't helpful anyway start to fall away. It's actually okay. Like totally okay for relationships to shift. Doesn't mean you don't love people less. You can love them more by actually creating space. That's what I found. So when you're growing and you're on this path and you guys are like this, relationships are going to change. That's a sign that you're on the right path. That's a sign that you're actually growing. Those conversations that you used to have with like people, or you're gossiping and doing this, that's not going to be so interesting anymore. It's not. You're going to want to be around like people that are nourishing you and motivating you and putting you into that mindset all the time where you're giving that back. But that's great. You're going to need more groups like this. It's like groups are growing out of this right now because you all need to be leaders and having these conversations. That's what I'm fueling here by offering this, is like for you all to get out there and just inspire like your own communities. That's how we change things. So the question again, Bear, you have to want it though. And this is so hard because we are everything is fighting against the stream for us to have that clarity. It's everything. It's so confusing and so much stuff and so much overwhelm and stress and anxiety. And I'm just coming back here and saying, no, what is it that you want that is worth doing this all the time? What is that life for you? Okay. It's really fighting against the stream, but that's why it's just like the lightning rod when you find it. And that's where everything unfolds. This is where Brian was sharing all these things that are coming to you. It's a very beautiful way to be living. And we've all done it. We've had moments like this already. We're just trying to make it our default. I don't ever want to go back to all those ways of being where I was struggling all the time. You know what I mean? That's okay to say that. It's actually enlightening to say, I don't have to be in struggle all the time and be the phoenix rising every 5 minutes. I'm just done with that whole game. I was actually on the phone with Dorinda before, and you were sharing something that you're going through. I'm like, I looked at it, I'm like, here's how we get rid of it. Blow it away. It's vapor. Some of these negative thoughts and limitations are absolute vapor, and they just don't need to exist. It's okay.